Joe, Indiana is able to overcome what was probably one of the wildest innings of this college football season. Indiana finds a way. Curt Cignetti after the game saying, I've been in this game a long time. I don't think I've ever just witnessed what I just witnessed. Your thoughts on the recap of Indiana squeaking out against Penn State?
Blake, as I said at the beginning of the show here, we came on the show last week and we gave Georgia credit for performing well and finishing in a sloppy game against Florida. Georgia found a way to win, locked in the fourth quarter, did everything that they needed to do, and we gave them credit. Good teams find ways to win was what we talked about. And it's something that we talk about on this show often. Indiana deserves the same credit because Indiana did not play a clean game, and they had multiple key injuries, including Elijah Surratt not being available. The season was on the line. Fernando Mendoza takes a sack at the start. Well, a perfect season was on the line.
There you go.
Perfect season's on the line. Mendoza takes a sack at the start of the drive. It is one of those plays.
So wild that he took a sack to start that drive and they scored. I'm sorry. Yes. God bless it.
Normally when you take a sack like that in a situation like it completely derails a drive. There is no way or path to end up marching the ball down the field. It is just not something that constitutes success. He made important big throw after big throw, drove the ball down the field. He didn't do any BS where he checked it down or scrambled and tried to run to the sideline. He delivered throws with pressure bearing down on him multiple times on that drive. Look, I don't think that Mendoza has the stats to win the Heisman. I don't think that he will. But I think that what he showed is that he has the grit, the clutchness, just the overall intensity needed to finish a football game when everything was on the line. And I think that that legitimizes Indiana as a title threat, as a Big Ten championship threat. You need to be able to face adversity and to overcome adversity to go on runs. Ohio State literally did it last year. They faced adversity twice, and they failed in adversity in those adverse situations, and that made them better. If you could succeed in those spots, I think that that is an incredibly, incredibly underrated thing in this modern version of college football to setting yourselves up for postseason success. I commend Indiana for what they did. I commend Mendoza for what he did. That dude is a baller.
That back shoulder throw before the touchdown sequence, the back shoulder throw to Becker along the sidelines was ridiculous. It was utterly, utterly ridiculous in a crucial spot. Listen, in reference to the game, Joe, you spoke on this earlier, and I kind of want to dig into this. They couldn't put it away. They just could not put Penn State away. And what separates teams when you talk about Ohio State and Indiana? We had this discussion coming into this. Is Curt Cignetti and Indiana going to try to make a statement because Ohio State just played Penn State and made a statement, right? And you were thinking coming into the game, oh, Curt Cignetti's going to run this thing up because they want to try to make a statement here. They couldn't put them away when Ohio State could, is the thought that just keeps rolling around in my mind. Go to the second half for just a moment. You're up 17-7, and you lead off the second half with a field goal. This is where things turned for them. They had the punt, the really bad Fernando Mendoza interception, another punt, and then you lost the lead. They legitimately got shut down for a half in the first time that we've seen Indiana shut down in a half. How? I think the bigger question is that we've seen Indiana be so dominant. What did Iowa and what did Penn State do to really ruffle those feathers? Joe, they just got after Mendoza when it mattered. And you're right. In the last drive, they got after him. He made some big throws. The relentless amount of pressure really bothered Mendoza. So, again, you get the field goal to make it 20-7. Then you punt, interception, punt, and then you got a lead down for a touchdown. Also, what did Penn State do at an elite level? Not a great level, an elite level. Joe, that time of possession where you're only given the ball to a team for 3 possessions after a field goal is insane. They held on to that ball, and they wore the game down. Nick Singleton had a massive day. We saw a chink in the armor, but to get to your point, the team that can physically just hold on to the ball and run it against Indiana will give Indiana, I think, some issues moving forward. Ohio State, we'll see that in a couple of weeks, I think. But you're right. When the going got tough and they need to make the plays to win, they did. Championship level teams do that. To everyone on audio, you can't see what I'm pointing to. Again, you keep seeing it over and over and over again. We've seen it from Georgia. We just saw it now from Indiana. The catch in the back of the end zone is arguably one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. I mean, to not have your right foot fall out of bounds and then get the other foot down, I don't know how to explain it. Joe, I've been thinking about this all day. How are we going to explain the catch that ended it? How? Because you can talk about the entire second half. I can talk about chinks in the armor for Indiana, pressure that they got in the interior did Penn State, the lack of run game in the second half. But the only thing that I can think about is how am I going to come out here tonight and explain that catch? Championship level. That's how I explain it. To your point, teams that find ways to win when everything's on the line matters. And Indiana proved it against Penn State, who, Joe, I thought let everything hang out. They took their bra off in the second half, and they let them titties hang. I mean, they did. They let everything go. I got to give Penn State a lot of credit for the fight. And by the way, we'll talk about this in a minute. Pena went off. And I also wonder, like, hey, man, what does an Ohio State do against you in that situation?
I mean, it's fair, but here's my only thing with this. I don't think that it's an ugly game. I don't think this is a game where we really pull from and we extract
every single thing.
Major issues like, oh my God, they had problems with X, Y, or Z. This now is going to hurt them. We're too many.
I would with
games.
Iowa and Penn State. The interior of that offensive line, Joe, got way too much push into Mendoza.
We're too many games into the season, I think, to really try to get that granular with every single game. I don't disagree. I think that their offensive line had a poor performance. I do not think that defines that their offensive line is bad. I think that they need to be better prepared and they need to play better. And in a situation where they go to the Big Ten championship game, which they're trending towards, their next couple games are very favorable and easy for them to win. They're going to face off with a very good interior group. Caden McDonald's a really good dude for that Ohio State defense. It is going to be some tough sledding. They need to be prepared and they need to be ready to go to war. I don't necessarily think that just because they gave up some big plays to Trevor Pena that it means they've got issues with their secondary, because to defend them, Pons and Farrell, their secondary is one of their strengths. I think that their secondary has a lot of guys that are going to go on to get a lot of NFL attention. I just think that with the general flow of the game, it did not work well for them. Actually, I think what the bigger issue was, I forget if Aiden Fisher didn't play or if he was unavailable or if he was just banged up. I forget what the whole deal is with that. I think it was a lot more concerning that they gave up as many big plays to Singleton, and then especially that 19-yard grab that he had out of the backfield and then just ran into the end zone. That to me is a little bit more concerning, because if you enter a situation where you face a team, that is more translatable to being an issue to me, because they hadn't seen a team that had an athlete at running back that's that gifted. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with the team who does something like that and is able to throw out of the backfield to someone like Singleton.
To your point, their second half tackling on him alone was horrible. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, you missed 4 tackles on his touchdown, the throw in the flat. Yeah, we'll see about their secondary. Pena went off, had a good day. I mean, look, the tackling in the second half I thought was very sloppy. I just thought that I saw a team in Penn State that Joe they have the same number of athletes that you do. And it's the same conversation that you have with Georgia when it comes to Florida in a lot of ways. I mean, both teams fired their head coach. Both teams got a lot of really big-time dudes, and you're in a slugfest. an outright slugfest on the road. And I think that you get to a place in time where, look, they're going to have to figure out some of this pressure in the interior, but it is a sloppy win. But the thing about saying a sloppy win is it's a win, and
right.
you keep moving. Look, there is one thing I did worry about in reference to not putting them away. Indiana was 5 of 12 on third down. They're going to have to be better there. In clutch situations, it is what it is. Mendoza just made the throws when he needed to. And when you have a guy that can make the throws when he needed to, you're going to be a problem for everybody that you face.
No, absolutely. That's just the biggest takeaway from this. You got a guy. It's impossible to find a quarterback that you can trust in late situations. It really is. Look at how many teams struggle to do it. Look at how many teams think they have a guy and then he ends up
benched,
stalling or stalling in his development. It is hard to come by not only these guys that are physically gifted, but also have the decision-making, the natural feel, the poise. They don't collapse under pressure. They step up to the occasion. Mendoza is awesome. And also, this isn't really related to what we talk about on the show. For me, he still stands as my number one prospect in the upcoming draft. I think him doing that proved it to me, like for certain, and that, hey, this guy has what it takes if he was a rookie or he's a second, third-year player in the NFL when the season's on the line, that he is going to make a play when he is called upon. But I'm impressed. I got
a text from a mutual friend of ours who's an assistant GM in the NFL. He texted me during the game, and he literally said, we're going to have to find out who Mendoza is.
Yeah.
That was his exact text to me. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then when he got sacked, he responded right after that. He goes, oh, no, Fernando, no. You don't take a sack there. Then I don't respond to the text. And then he texts me after the touchdown and goes, oh, my God. I'm like, yeah, oh, my God. I don't know how to contextualize what they did.
No.
Because here's how I would contextualize what they did at the end and before we move on. I felt like a team with a whole bunch of portal players kind of felt like they'd been there before. They haven't been there. But just to give you an idea, they have not been in the situation this season exactly where they were in that final drive. They've never been there, ever. And I think it says a lot about culture. I think it says a lot about unity and team and about your quarterback. Joe, when's the last time that they've needed a last-second drive to win a game?
Right, they haven't. They hadn't really been challenged.
But they acted like – but it's – Joe, I'm at a baseball scrimmage today between two big-time programs with my son, and a guy hits a home run the first inning, and he's just jogging around the bases. And the guy behind me goes, man, he acts like he's been there before. And the old saying is, well, no, he hadn't. He hadn't been in there before in an LSU uniform or whatever. They just keep acting like they've been there before, even when they haven't. And I think that the personality of Curt Cignetti is rubbing off on him. So,
absolutely.
All right, let's move on here.